Hi everyone, and welcome to Recruitment in View, the podcast that's all about the recruitment and everything related to the recruitment industry. I'm joined today by Hann, who is our Divisional Manager of Contingent Labour for KM Facilities Management Group PLC. Thank you for joining me, Leon. Thanks for coming on board.
Thanks for having me.
All good. I know, obviously, you're a group company. You've got many sort of strings to your bow as a business and different specialisms. Remind me, I think one of them is like you've got construction, you've got security, you've got cleaning, facilities, management. I think, is there anything else that I've missed in terms of some of the industries you focus on?
There or thereabouts.
Thereabouts. Bless you. Okay, wanted to get that in because it's very relevant to the episode today, which is all about, from a recruitment perspective, about contingent labour. Me personally, just my journey on contingent labour. So I went into recruitment 20 years ago, made the transition into HR, and more recently, in the last 3 or 4 years, been involved in contingent labour. And it's interesting because a lot of focus is on the people function and HR and permanent hiring, but people have not realised the complexity that actually sits in contingent labour, and something probably for another podcast, to be honest, the complexities of it, but also the responsibility. No one owns contingent labour, so pretty much the responsibility of a recruitment agency to deal with. And so we're going to talk about the evolving feast that is the growing popularity of contingent labour, temporary recruitment, non-employee labour. There's so many acronyms that follow this as well. We won't go there today. It will take up the whole podcast. But I think let's start with quite a simple question. I think for the audience that will be those new to recruitment, those seasoned in recruitment and everything in between, what's your take on contingent labour today, Liam?
I think at the moment contingent labour is just it's a vital part of any business's kind of setup, really, particularly in the sort of areas that we're sort of talking about. Construction, logistics, and warehousing, manufacturing is another key sort of sector of ours. And those types of businesses all have peaks and troughs, and the only way really to address that commercially is through contingent labour.
Absolutely. Another term that's thrown out there is blue collar, right? Blue collar versus white collar. We won't go into that debate today. But I mean, blue collar, it's regardless of industry, as you said, manufacturing, construction, you and me know extremely well, right? It lives and breathes off of being able to deliver a project and the need to scale quickly and offload quickly. That need to deal with that project or solution, it comes from the need of contingent labour or consultants or whatever they need, right?
Exactly that, yeah.
Part of that. Absolutely. Not a pop quiz, but something I think that might be educational for people, right? And you've got more of a blue-collar angle with it, and it does touch white-collar contingent labour as well. But what's your sort of I suppose, classifications that you find? So what are the typical situations? You've got temp, you've got obviously agency workers, you've got people on a contract or maybe some sort of SOW. Is there any other sort of categories that you tend to find in your world or particular standouts in some of the sectors you're in?
Primarily sort of temp at the moment. I mean, what's kind of been clubbed into contingent labour, and whether or not you view it as contingent or not is another thing, but popular avenue for businesses at the moment is temp to perm.
Okay, nice. Yeah.
So we include that in our contingent division, but obviously the idea with that is that it's kind of a try before you buy thing for businesses to do, because they get to have people on a temporary basis for 3 months, essentially an extra probationary period, and to decide whether or not they want to offer them that permanent job.
And it's an interesting one you say that, because I do think we're fighting this fight. I'm going into legislation a bit here, but where we're going to have change, particularly without boring the audience at this point, about the Employment Rights Bill. I nearly say Human Rights Bill then. But the challenge that's going to come with day one rights is, I think, a lot of people are going to want to try before they buy. So I definitely think that's going to be a growing little thing there that comes soon.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the changes and everything are gonna make a big impact on the industry in general. It'll be really interesting to see what the introduction of the Fair Work Agency brings to the industry. I think it has the potential there to clean things up a little bit and really clamp down on non-compliant agencies, and the ones that aren't kind of doing things right will either have to put things right or will disappear. So I think it will certainly tighten things up a little bit and make things better all round for the industry on a whole.
Okay, so what would you say are the specific challenges in contingent labour? A lot of people know permanent hiring. They understand people. They understand when you're dealing with an employee, the complexity that comes with that. What do you find specifically within contingent labour, particularly your industries that you're working in?
One of the big things that a lot of businesses are struggling with, and we hear the term bandied around a lot, is the skill shortage in certain industries more than others. I mean, it kind of increases the need for contingent agencies to become involved, because where there is that skills gap, you need to find these people from somewhere. I think the downside to it is that whilst contingent agencies can certainly help with that, essentially what you kind of find agencies are having to do is they're doing is they're taking those people from someone else to give to you, and it doesn't really fix anything in that gap. Something that we've sort of tried to do to try and sort of support that. I'm thinking just a couple of weeks ago in our logistics team, we've started working with driving schools and things like that, to basically try to encourage the clients that we work with to use newly qualified drivers. We work with the driving schools to advertise within the school, to give newly qualified drivers that starting point, that there is work there once they've passed their test, which and I think this is something that needs to change kind of in the mindset of businesses in general, is that, everybody talks about the skills shortage, but they only want people that have got experience. And how do people get that experience without
Yes, I'd agree with that. Yeah. It's like why apprenticeships don't work, let's be honest, mostly in blue collar, is because no one can give people the time of day to give them the opportunity to learn. So you're just going around in the same old wash machine cycle and not really changing anything. Means, why do you expect something to be different, right?
Exactly.
It's almost like the pure definition of insanity. Do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result. It's like, well, why do you think that's going to do anything? But it's interesting you talk about driving, because I'm talking to a business unrelated to this podcast, but about construction training, and that's always been short and in demand. But the challenge is there's not enough people wanting to do these jobs, right? At least driving is actually more. It sounds funny. You go back 20 years ago, I would have said construction would have been more attractive than driving. I think today people would accept driving as a career. HGV driver, delivery driver is more attractive than working in the construction industry, which is a real shame, because construction is the backbone of the UK, right? Essentially, and there's a huge amount of schools, colleges, training programs out there. Not enough people wanting to go into the jobs, so there's definitely a skill shortage crisis.
And I think agencies need to adapt to try and combat that and do our part as well. So, for example, on the driving, sort of how we're trying to encourage our clients on that side to use newly qualified drivers. the argument up until now, for the most part, is always that their insurances won't cover newly qualified drivers. So, okay, well then the answer to that, to try and for us to encourage you to use newly qualified, is that our insurance will cover newly qualified drivers.
Okay,
So
nice.
there's things that we can do as labour providers to try and help that skills gap. I just don't think it's something that's quite widely adopted yet.
Absolutely, and I think the other thing that can be massively fruitful is just coming away from driving and just more sort of generally around any of these kind of schools training. A lot of them are funded, right? You can get funding out there for them as long as there's a job outcome. That's what the funding cares about. But the reality is companies are probably not organised or not in a position to directly hire all the time, right? What they should do is partner with one or two of their recruitment businesses and say, look, as you sort of pointed out there, you could apply this in various verticals or industries,
Exactly,
right? Where even construction, we're trying to do the same, which is, yes, that person's going to go and do some sort of training. They're not going to be useful for the first 6 months. They're probably going to come and labour and learn an industry, as a construction example. But give them 6 months having got trained, they then become someone that can then grow from there, and they might go from a chippy mate to a carpenter, chippy carpenter, is a slang term in construction. But, and sort of grow from there. Yeah, it might take them 10 years to become a fully fledged shuttering carpenter and on the big bucks that they want to be on, but you're at least getting rid of that sort of stepping stone that's needed, and it's often helping a recruitment agency. But the problem with a company is they're very short-sighted with recruitment, which we won't badmouth clients about recruitment at this point in the podcast, maybe later. But if they partner with a recruitment agency, they can get rid of those catch-22s. But the problem is there's always a distance, particularly in the UK, with recruitment businesses, that there has to be this sort of disconnect. You can partner and make a difference.
Absolutely.
So, I'm one of the few people that actually like recruitment agencies. That's someone who has a PSL of agencies. I actually like them. I'm a rarity, I'm afraid. Being an ex-recruiter, I sort of value what they do. Most people don't, sadly, which you'll know very well, being in the recruitment industry. But no, it's an interesting sort of point about the skill shortage, because, like I say, and honestly, go back to your temp to perm. Great opportunity if they've got huge amount of vacancies and they don't know how to do that. Contingent labour is a great, and it's almost going down the world of, I know it's an overly used term, total talent, but it is a step towards total talent, right? Which is a great thing that every company should be aspiring to, because total talent's where you make the most amount of investment, but with the littlest amount of money, with the maximum amount of return. In a nutshell, but no one's got there yet that I've ever seen. To be honest, but it'll be another couple of decades till they do. To be honest with you, so in terms of we've talked about sort of skill shortage and stuff like that. What's your thoughts on the differences or the nuances between industries? If you look at SIA security or construction or driving, is there any? I suppose very much from the voice of the worker here, do you find differences or nuances or anything in particular that sort of stands out in contingent labour particularly?
Obviously different industries each experience different market fluctuations. I think, although having said that, I think something that I've sort of noticed probably only really over the last 6 months or so is that there's very similar challenges across sort of all of the contingent industries that we work with, really. And I think a lot of it kind of comes down to candidate expectations and engagement with your temporary workforce. Because whether it be sort of security, construction, or logistics, or really any of the sort of verticals that we work in, I think contingent labour is often treated as a little bit of a commodity, and it's kind of just and it's kind of just these guys aren't quite part of the team, so we don't need to get them involved in initiatives and everything else that we're doing. And I think that is where a lot of businesses fall down. I think if we can do more to engage contingent labour and make them part of the business, that's where people want to stay, and you end up finding permanent employees.
Yeah, well, but even just looking after the workers, and they don't want to be. I use construction specifically as an example because they love being self-employed, right? The
Yeah,
CIS scheme is
yeah,
is there that they really want to utilise, right? And let's be honest, that's for tax reasons more than anything. But without getting HMRC on my case at this point, one thing I would say is it doesn't even matter if they want to be employees or they want to be gig economy forever. And there's a growing
yeah.
trend in people want to be in the gig economy, as it's known as, right?
Hmm.
But actually, looking after workers, even in the gig economy, is the right thing to do because you'll
Of
have the
course.
best
Yeah.
skills, the most industry leading skills, potentially that you can't afford or can't sustain full time or permanently in your workforce that you can tap in and out of. And reputation goes, it spreads, right? If you're a good business that look after your workers, regardless of it's temp or perm, they'll always come back to you. So the fact is, it's an Ouroboros circle of doing good. We'll look after the good, we'll look after your business, right? And I definitely think that's
Yeah, you
something we
hit
need
the nail on
to,
the head.
we should all aspire to, right? Yeah,
Hit
absolutely.
the nail on
The
the head
one question for you on this was about mental health. So something I've always been quite passionate about, and it actually goes back. Are you mental health first aider? Have you ever done that course?
I did a course on that a few years back, but I haven't done an updated
All
version of
right,
it.
okay. Um, there's Matthew, and I can't think of his name now. His surname. He runs a consultancy doing the training on mental health first aid. So I
Yeah,
did it very early on before anyone was talking about mental health in the sort of early days. And honestly, the company I was with at the time was trying to do a bid, and they went, "Oh, we need one of these certificates or someone to be accredited." And I was head of HR. I was like, "Oh, you can go and do it for us, right?" So tick that box. And as much as it was a tick box exercise for the business at the time, and rightly or wrongly, it is what it is when people bid for work. But what I would say is the trainer was absolutely fantastic and passionate, and it definitely rubs off on you that kind of passion in training, right? Doesn't matter what it is, but I'd highly recommend anyone listening who isn't mental health first aid accredited to go and do the course because it's only a couple of days, but it enlightens you where we are with mental health and definitely something that people should look out for each other on. But the reason why I mention it is a huge issue in construction massively.
massively.
But also in the contingent labour in the workforce, the flexible workforce is, one that is thrown out there to look after themselves, fend for themselves. And I
Yeah,
understand their classification is not an employee. And I'm HR by trade, right? At the end of the day, I don't think many companies look after their internal staff very well around mental health, let alone contingent workforce, if I'm brutally honest with you. But
yeah.
it is definitely something that I've seen firsthand that's not done very well. I mean, what's your sort of thoughts around mental health in your sort of spheres of contingent labour?
100%, 100% agree with what you just said. I think it's something that that's something that unless people have had personal experience of it, have been affected by it, either
Mm.
personally or in their family or close friends or something like that, I think it's something that
Yeah,
people can be a little bit oblivious to,
yeah,
unless they've gone and done one of these training courses or something like that. But I think it's something that is quite often very overlooked, unless you've had that exposure to it.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
from a contingent point of view, I mean, like you say, internally what clients want to do and how they want to manage that isn't necessarily something that we can do an awful lot about. But I think that's where it's our job to treat our contingent staff as our employees, as treat them with the sort of level of care as we would our consultants or anybody within our teams.
Yeah,
We should be doing sort of check-ins with our candidates that are on site to see how they're getting on, any issues, anything like that. Rather than just sort of putting them to work and just sort of forgetting
yeah.
about them.
Absolutely. And if I was to say from a non from a client perspective, a non-recruitment business perspective. The one thing I find very fascinating, and it is a trend that is very clear, right, within the recruitment industry, is particularly in blue-collar trades, is two things. Number one, the agencies that have the people are the ones that are the most sought after, because anyone can claim they can find a tradesman in the back end of Scotland or something, but in reality, could they? It is another, unless you've got boots on the ground or someone's in your database, right, that you know of, the chances are you're going to just chuck an ad on and hope, right, and pray that you can actually fill the job, which is, look, recruitment is recruitment, right? We have to do these things sometimes, but, it's not a bad thing, advertising, but those that have kept onto their database and looked after their database definitely have a competitive advantage, right? But the other thing is, the ones that literally are the agencies that look after their workers, have workers that doesn't matter if someone offers them 20p an hour more money, tend to stay regardless. And that is worth the investment in time. It is being someone who's willing to care about your workers pays dividends. So again, it does go around that sort of, even from an agency perspective, in a Ouroboros circle of, it doesn't always work, don't get me wrong. There's always those that don't trust the business that looks after them and thinks it's all about the money and they're going to chase the dream. You're going to lose out occasionally, but certainly it does, generally speaking, yeah.
And you see that from consultants as well. Because, everybody, all agencies sort of talk about when they're taking on a new consultant, what clients can they bring with them? But actually, I've experienced the other side of it, where we've got business and we've got consultants that can just ring up candidates that have basically followed them wherever they've gone because they've treated them well and they've checked in with them regularly and they've got that relationship with them, which is just as important.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to go into next question is about future trends and some of the stuff that's coming up. But I definitely say, going back to what we were talking about with skill shortages, that's such a sensible thing. If you've got a good history of looking after good workers, you're going to get the work anyway eventually. It doesn't mean that you're going to win the work today, but if you've got good people that care about you, why would they go and work somewhere else? It's a case of, do you want my database or not? Where else are you going to get these people from, right? And it's almost a slight arrogance, but in a good way, right? It's going to get you the business because those people are only going to be loyal to you. And again, that's definitely going to be more important as we go through the next few years, for sure. We've definitely got a 3-year journey of change, which we'll talk about in a sec. But in those 3 years, I think those that are willing to put up with these changes and have loyal people that don't, how can I put this very nicely? Day one rights could be used and abused. Let's put it that way. I'm not trying to be a politician, but those that are your database that you trust, that you'd want to give them these things because they're good people. The ones that are going to bode well, you're going to give them extra incentives because you can and should anyway. But you're in a position where it's a win-win rather than testing the water with people from a job ad that you have no idea whether they're any good or not, right? And then hoping to put them out on your client and give them day one rights and all sorts, right? Challenges that are going to come with this. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. And why I say that, by the way, for clarity, just in case anyone's going to pick hairs of what I just said, was there is in the contingent workforce people that will have day one rights because they will be pay-way. So from a classification perspective, sorry, if there's any, I'll call it compliance geeks out there, they might question that statement, but yeah, pay-way people will have day one rights, which is quite interesting if you put them on a contract. So that will hit. So the Employment Rights Bill will hit recruitment agencies and the contingent workforce. Which is quite an interesting milestone that most people are not aware of. The one thing that's another piece of legislation that's going to hit us, that I'm seeing lots of people putting off at the minute and they're going to panic in April, is the finance bill, which is going to hit contingent labour hard. How have you found talking to your umbrella companies yourself? Have you gone through that yet, or is that an after Christmas task? For you?
I mean, I think anybody is sort of foolish to not be at least thinking about it at the moment. So we've initiated conversations.
You're ahead of some people. You certainly are. You've had conversations, but look, it always starts with a conversation, mate. To be fair,
Exactly.
so it's all good. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Bless you. Right. So I think I could talk all day about contingent labour. We can't do a 4-hour podcast because that will bore our audience. But what I would say is, and sort of a question to close on, right? We've covered a number of things here around contingent labour, but what do you see apart from the current legislation or the pending legislation? Just generally speaking, what do you think will change in contingent labour in your eyes over the next decade?
I think the biggest change, and something that I'm sure we could spend hours talking about again, is is just technology integration and how that's going to impact the whole industry, really. And I think it's about, I think rather than being fearful of it or trying to use it to do everything, it's just using it in the right way. Because it is going to transform. It is going to transform recruitment. I know people are currently using it to sort of for candidate matching to jobs, and people are using it to sort of screen, trying to use it anyway to screen resumes, screen CVs. Sorry, talking American now, and that kind of thing. And I think it's one of those things that at the moment the industry as a whole is very much trying to sort of muddle through and see where it works and where it doesn't. There's an element of trial and error involved with it, but I don't think it's something that the industry should at all run from. I think the agencies that do try and run from it are the ones that are going to fall behind, because it is there, and we should be embracing it in any ways that we can. We've kind of taken a slow and steady sort of integration of it. We're using it, for example, at the moment, just to streamline and automate some of our administrative processes to free up our consultants' time to speak to more candidates and speak to more clients. So it's saving us time in that regard. So how much and how fast companies want to embrace it is obviously up to them. But I think it's something that we have to sort of be aware of and be starting to introduce into businesses if we're not already.
Yeah, I mean, very sensible. I mean, there's a couple of things that I see in AI, particularly, which is automation AI. I mean, largely are similar things, right? To be honest, but we won't go into that rabbit hole for this podcast. That's one for another session, maybe. But in regards to anything with automation, if it's a repetitive process that makes sense to have a machine do it rather than the person, because person makes mistakes and it's boring as hell as a task, then it's a no-brainer to use that. To be honest, what is it AI going to learn? Probably not a lot, because it's a very restricted pool of things that it's going to learn. So it learning in that is a concentrated, closed AI, as is known as, sort of sphere. That's the best way to use AI today. In it, because OpenAI is just a minefield of, and I do play with AI sometimes. And my son was playing. My eldest son, who's doing his GCSEs next year, is heavily into computing, and he likes playing with AI and doing things like they were talking about the conspiracy of the moon landing, and he got ChatGPT to be 4, and he got what's the other one? Microsoft, ChatGPT, and brain's gone dead. Copilot, thank you, and got Copilot to do the against, right? And they were arguing, and it was really funny, because actually I would have always gone, nah, they must have landed on the moon. Why would they bother? And then when you hear AI start arguing, you go, that's quite an interesting point, actually. So there's always going to be some good in AI and things like that, and more for entertainment reasons, as you can tell, with something like that. But in terms of business, you just can't jump wholeheartedly into something. The huge negative I've seen was in AI. and automation is I used to love LinkedIn. I've really started to disengage in LinkedIn a little bit. In more recent years, just the amount of time is not enough, sadly. But I think the engagement level on LinkedIn generally is 1,000 times lower than what it used to be. It's an exaggeration, but I think people were happy to have a conversation, and everyone would get spammed in mails and stuff like that. You kind of took that with a pinch of salt, but the reality is, it was a social platform. I don't think it's social anymore because half the posts are AI generated, and you can tell them clearly. It's like the same emojis, and it's like everything's becoming vanilla. A little bit, bar a few people that that are doing their own posts that are clearly the same few that you're probably connected with. Outside of that, you just start questioning the whole use of the platform, which is a shame because LinkedIn is quite a powerful tool and a really good one. Based my 20 years on LinkedIn, to be frank, and it's paid for itself in a way, which was free, essentially. But it seems different, sort of strange to ruin it. To be fair, they should be cleverer about catching AI posts. But it just means that it's all more noise on LinkedIn. But that's another story. Okay. Well, look, I think we've covered enough for this podcast. I think there's probably another podcast here for you and me to chat on, and we could be here for a long time. But many thanks again for coming and talking about contingent labour today. And we'll see you again soon, Leon. Appreciate your time.
See you soon. Thank you very much.